In the canyon where I grew up, there was a German shepherd who survived things no dog should survive. Rattlesnakes, javelinas, a mountain lion, even a bear. Her name was Luna. She was the wildest and most fearless of all of our shepherds. After spending the first part of her life mostly confined to a crate, arriving here was like watching a caged animal suddenly set free. Luna came to our canyon when she was just a tiny puppy. She belonged to my parents, but I lived next door, and before long she became partly my dog too. She roamed freely through the canyon and would often show up at my place eager to play. I'd throw sticks for her, or just sit with her a while, and when she was ready, she'd wander back home on her own. She was independent and fearless, and eventually we realized just how dangerous that combination could be. One afternoon, Luna came running toward the house, and something about the way she moved immediately felt wrong. As she got closer, my dad saw her head swelling rapidly. Right above her eye were 2 tiny puncture marks. A rattlesnake had struck her. My dad ran inside to call the veterinarian, but when he came back out, Luna was gone. He eventually found her wandering upstream, dazed and disoriented. He loaded her into the back of his truck and rushed her to the animal hospital. When they drove past my house, her head was swollen to an unbelievable size. It barely looked real. Thankfully, Luna had already received a rattlesnake vaccine, which probably helped slow the venom's effects. And when she reached the vet, they immediately gave her anti-venom. Even so, she spent an entire week in the animal hospital before she was finally strong enough to come home. The bite had landed only about an inch from her eye. The vet told us that if the snake had struck her directly in the eye, she likely would have died. But that wasn't Luna's only brush with death. Not even close. Several years later, my mom was out walking Luna and her Australian shepherd sister, Annie, along a dirt road in the canyon. As my mom rounded a bend, she accidentally startled a mountain lion. The 2 dogs instantly charged after it. Within seconds, all 3 disappeared down the road while my mom screamed for the dogs to come back. Knowing they probably wouldn't listen, she ran home for help. My dad jumped in his truck and headed out to search for them. Along the way, he stopped a hiker and asked if he'd heard barking. The man pointed to a nearby canyon. Snow covered the ground, and as my dad approached the canyon, he began seeing blood. A lot of blood. Following the sound of barking deeper into the canyon, he eventually found Annie lying on the ground. She was badly injured, with bite marks all over her head. As my dad picked her up, he suddenly heard growling behind him. He turned and saw a crevice between massive boulders. The mountain lion was still there, watching him. He turned back, lifted Annie into his arms, and hiked out of that canyon as quickly as he could. After getting Annie safely home, he immediately went back out to search for Luna. This time, he found her farther upstream from the lion's den. At first, Luna tried to avoid him because she thought he would scold her. But when my dad finally reached her, he realized she looked even worse than Annie. She had deep bite wounds on her snout and a massive slash across her face from the lion's claws that had narrowly missed her eye. Both dogs survived, though they needed stitches and extensive veterinary care afterward. And somehow, Luna kept going. There are many more stories about Luna and her encounters with wildlife, but there's one more I have to tell. The story of the bear. One warm spring evening, my mom was walking the dogs past my house while I worked in the garden. We stopped to talk for a moment when suddenly my brother's dog started barking from down canyon. Normally I would have ignored it. his dogs bark at everything. But then Luna suddenly took off, running up the driveway. I looked uphill to see what she'd spotted and saw a massive black bear moving across the slope above us. I immediately started screaming, "Luna, no! Luna, come home!" over and over at the top of my lungs. All I could think was, the rattlesnake didn't kill her. The mountain lion didn't kill her. But if she chases that bear, it absolutely will kill her. I screamed because I knew her life depended on it, and because I loved that darn dog. By then, Luna had already reached the same ridge as the bear and had started charging downhill toward it. She was maybe 100 feet away. Then, somehow, it finally registered that we were calling her back. She stopped. She must have heard the urgency and panic in our voices. She looked at us. Then she looked back at the bear. And by some miracle, she decided to come home. I couldn't believe it. It was completely unlike Luna to abandon pursuit once she'd committed to chasing a wild animal. I'd been screaming so loudly that my husband heard me from down near my dad's place. He jumped into our buggy and raced uphill to see what was wrong, just in time to see the bear swim across the creek below. When the soaking wet bear climbed out onto the bank, he was stunned by how enormous it was. Even though it was all wet, it looked huge. He estimated it to be about 300 pounds. Ironically, my dad had never seen a bear in the wild before that, but by the time he reached the hillside, it had already disappeared around a bend in the canyon. After all the danger Luna survived, all the close calls, all the fights she walked away from, what finally took her from us was a large tumor in her belly. She was about 12 years old. She wasn't a cat, but it sure felt like she had 9 lives. And I'll never forget her courage in the face of danger. Luna taught me something about animals raised in wild places. After enough time, they stop feeling separate from the land around them. They become part of it. She wasn't just a pet. Luna was a creature of the canyon. Maybe that's why the shepherds of my childhood always felt different. They didn't just live beside the wild. They belonged to it.